Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today we are continuing our look at the complete history of the Pokemon trading card game. We're looking at a special set today. We are looking at Generations. This was, of course, the set that celebrated 20 years of the Pokemon TCG and was awesome. 20 years of the franchise, really, more than the TCG, but still, 20-year celebration, it was awesome. Now, in terms of release dates, it was a little bit weird, because on the one hand, it got released in English on February the 22nd, 2016, and I suppose the Japanese equivalent, the starter pack, got released on February the 27th, 2016, which was 5 days after. So if you take this as the starter pack, we actually got it first, but there was also the Radiant collection, which was included here, the second Radiant collection, which was in Japan the Pokémon collection, which was actually released 1 month earlier. So about half the set, the main set, we got first, but then the Radiant collection, we got second. I'll leave that one up to you guys. Either way, we got it pretty close, and that was cool. Now, being a special set means that there were no booster packs available here. You had to buy products, and there were various things that were available to buy. So you could buy the mythical collections. Now, these were very, very cool. I still have a bunch of these just sitting around sealed because I don't know why not. Never found out exactly what to do with them. But these featured a pin and a promo and a couple of packs and were lovely. We then had red and blue collections, which featured the first partner Pokemon and Pikachu. Now, they had models in the US. I believe it was because of some laws regarding plastic or something. In the UK, and Europe, we never got the models. We got jumbo cards instead, although a lovely person did send me the models, and that was awesome. And then there were other products like the Super Premium Collection Mew and Mewtwo, which was super premium. And there was an Elite Trainer box, so there were some cool products around, but you had to buy them like that. You couldn't just go and buy packs in shops. And I know some shops did actually do that, but that was because they were opening products and selling the packs separately. Now, in terms of EXs in the main set, there was no such thing as full arts because they all came from an EX starter set over in Japan. And there were no full arts in that. And remember the rule we've seen throughout the years in the Pokemon TCG. If there's no full art in Japan because it came in some kind of special deck or whatever, there is no full art to have over here. Yes, fine, there's rare exceptions, but generally we don't get them. So we had Venusaur and Mega Venusaur. Not incidentally the first time we've seen Venusaur. It wasn't particularly good, but hey, we got it. There was a Leafeon EX that was kind of beautiful, but not very good. There was another Charizard with Mega Charizard. You might be seeing a theme here. It wasn't particularly good. There was a Ninetales EX, which had a decent draw attack, but let's face it, wasn't particularly good. There was a Blastoise and Mega Blastoise, and I love my boy Blastoise, but this wasn't particularly good. There was a Vaporeon EX, which was extremely cool, but it wasn't good. There was a Jolteon EX, which actually was very, very good. This was a very, very cool card. So, yay! We'll get to this one more in a minute, but this was legit playable. There was a Meowstic EX, which again was legit playable. We'll get there in a moment. And there was a Golem EX, and I love me some Golem. Third best Gen 1 Pokemon. Oh, this EX was terrible. Really bad. Although I got it in Italian when I commentated Italian Nationals. That was really cool, but it wasn't particularly good. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But we also had the Radiant collection, and these did have full arts. So there was a Flareon, which was actually sneaky good. It had an ability to let you move fire energy to this Pokemon, and then an attack that did more for each fire energy. And this got both a regular and an absolutely stunning full art, which we absolutely loved. We had a Sylveon as well, which again was... people tried to use it a little bit, but it wasn't particularly good. But again, we had the regular and the full art, which was absolutely lovely. Interestingly enough, there was also Gardevoir and Mega Gardevoir that were actually just reprints of the cards that came around in Ancient Origins, but in the Radiant Collection, and they were absolutely stunning. Also in the Radiant Collection, there was an actual pile of Pikachu, and oh my word, this card is absolutely stunning. Over in the main set, there were no full arts of EXs or trainers or anything like that, but there was actually a full art Articuno and a full art Zapdos, which was cool. And the Zapdos did see a tiny bit of play here and there as a lightning type attacker with a resistance to fighting. Weirdly, no Moltres, just these two as full arts. Hey ho, ladies and gentlemen. Hey ho. And while we're here, just have a look at the Radiant Collection. Like the Charizard line. This has become somewhat mythical as it's really cool. Just telling a story through 3 cards. That was absolutely amazing. Look at the Raichu and how beautiful that was. This was an amazing set. And take a look at Floral Crown. That's not Comfy. Comfy was introduced in Gen 7. This was a card from Generations, which is an X and Y set, which is Gen 6. Generations came out, the set Generations came out before Comfy was a Pokemon. This is a weird card, right? This is a very, very weird card. This is not Comfy, and it is a card that was released before Comfy was a Pokemon. Yeah. When I realised this a little while, because obviously at the time it didn't seem weird, when I look back on this card later, it was a bit confusing. Now, in terms of the most expensive card in the set, it is obviously the Mega Charizard. That's like a $60 card. So, yeah, most of these cards actually remained pretty gosh darn cheap. It's a smaller set, and it's not terribly competitive. And there are a bunch of competitive cards in here, like Golbat was great and Raichu was great, but they're not from this set, they're reprints. There are a bunch of reprints in a small set, and a lot of the newer cards were kind of, Japanese promos that weren't particularly good, etc. But there are a few gems in here that we can point to as legitimately playable cards. Like Jolteon. Jolteon was legitimately a good card. It was a really, really good card. Because what it did, for free energy, and crucially only 2 of them were colourless, made it way more techable, 70 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. There's only one good deck that came around from Generations, I'll show it to you in a moment, but Jolteon was a legit card, did actually see play quite a long time later in a whole bunch of Lightning decks. I think there were even some early Pikachu and Zekrom decks that had this card in. Or just to confirm, there were. That's not a thing. There absolutely were. And that's weird, right? That's a little bit weird. It seems like they were too far apart. Point is, this was a very, very good card. Now, Meowstic EX was also a very good card, but it was a very specific card that was only good kind of in one particular deck. The ability Shadow Ear said, if this was your active Pokemon, you may move 1 damage counter from one of your Pokemon to your opponent's Pokemon. But in Ancient Origins, we would get the Gyarados that did 30 damage plus 30 more for each damage counter on each of your bench Magikarp. And so because you were playing around with South damage, etc., so you'd be playing Team Magma's Secret Base, and then you'd have damage counters on your Pokemon, like the Meowstic that you drop down, so then you would be able to use this to move the damage over to your opponent. Bit cheeky, but worked quite nicely. Flareon EX, as I mentioned, was a fun little rogue deck here and there. Never really made huge waves, but it was played as a little bit of a fun deck. And similarly, Zapdos was played just purely as a single prize Pokemon with a resistance to fighting, because, and this has happened to Zapdos throughout the years incidentally, it did decent damage, gave up 1 prize, and had a resistance to fighting rather than a weakness, so it saw a tiny bit of play here and there. Over in trainer cards, we had Revitalize. Now, this was actually a really good card, but specifically in Vesperquen decks, let you put 2 grass Pokemon from your discard pile into your hand. So this is really good for recovering your grass Pokemon, but only in that deck. And we had Olympia, saw a tiny bit of play, let you switch your active with one of your bench and heal 30 from the Pokemon you move to the bench. It's a supporter that switches while healing. Didn't see a huge amount of play, but did make it into a few decks here and there. And then Imakuni was not a good card, let's be clear, but Imakuni is just literally a supporter card that confused you. Your active Pokemon is confused, and that's just kind of amazing. A terrible, terrible card, but kind of fun. If anybody's wondering, Imakuni's shirt, literally, I've never tried reading it before, literally just says Pokemon on it. Now, in terms of the best decks that came around from Generations, really there's only one. It's really Jolteon, Glaceon, Vileplume that came around. Well, it got 3rd place at Worlds in 2016. Samuel Ho, sorry if I'm pronouncing that badly, I apologise, went and got 3rd place at Worlds in 2016 with this deck. And if you go on to Limitless, and you have a look at results from the time, you will see this deck popping up here and there. It was alright. It was a legit deck that did alright, and like I say, we even saw a top 4 finish at the World Championships with it. That should kind of tell you what you need to know. Now, really, the whole point of the deck was that Vileplume would stop your opponent playing item cards. Jolteon would stop attacks from basic Pokemon, and then you had the Glaceon from Fates Collide, which was basically the same thing as Jolteon, but it's turned off attacks or stopped your opponent attacking with evolution Pokemon. And then we had the card Ninja Boy, which just let you swap a basic Pokemon in play for a basic Pokemon in your deck. Yeah. So, against basic Pokemon, you'd have Jolteon. If they switch to evolutions, you would Ninja Boy for a Glaceon. But bearing in mind the whole time, you'd be slowing them down because Vileplume would stop them playing items. And this was just a really good deck. Also, incidentally, saw play with Aegislash, which was good because it turned off attacks or prevented damage from Pokemon with special energy. And this was just a very good, very effective, very annoying deck. And that's really the only deck that came around from Generations, but bear in mind Generations was always intended as a celebration set. It was never really intended as a big competitive set. So sure, we only got half a dozen good cards out of it in one deck, but believe me, ladies and gentlemen, it was a very cool set, and I hope you collected it at the time. But now it's over to you guys. What were your memories like of Generations if you played at the time? If you didn't, what are your thoughts seeing it now for the first time? Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon card games, Pokemon card games, all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. Oh, and you can get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Austin Montville, who's been a supporter of ours for a little while now and seems to be a very lovely person. So shout out to them for all the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching PTCG Radio.